energy will create a truly renewable and green source of energy. I'd like to thank the Chair and the committee for the work they've done to bring this bill to the floor, and I ask all my colleagues to support this amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back the balance of his time. What purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
I move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I reluctantly rise to oppose the gentleman from Pennsylvania's amendment. First of all, I want to salute him for being a strong advocate for water power. I think those of us on the committee are as well. His amendment would increase, as we're aware, funding for the renewable energy, renewable reliability and efficiency by $31 million, using the departmental administration account as an offset to restore the water power program to the requested level. Our allocation, as I said on a number of times, was made for some really tough choices. Our bill cuts applied energy and advanced research programs to allow more funding for inherently federal responsibilities. While I support the programs championed by my colleague, we can simply not afford to increase energy reliability activities so significantly by diverting funding from other essential activities within the Department of Energy. One of the issues with the Department of Energy is that they've had management issues. They need money to obviously better manage a lot of the activities. They have a new Secretary of Energy. He needs the resources to do it. And if we keep tapping from this account, there'll be no money to pay for the management and operation and accountability we expect from the Chief Executive of this Department. Therefore, I reluctantly oppose his amendment and urge members to do likewise. And yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from Ohio, seek recognition.
Yes, I move to strike the last word, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman and members, I rise to oppose the gentleman's well-intentioned amendment and again reiterate that our budget is simply insufficient in our subcommittee to meet all of the needs of the country. What the gentleman is proposing is to take an additional $31 million out of the Department's administrative accounts and to shift them to renewable energy systems relating to dams and small dam construction. That is a very worthy objective. However, if you know anything about the Department of Energy, one of the challenges we face in the administrative accounts is getting them to manage their contracts in a way that properly oversees taxpayer dollar expenditures. And that department has had some of the worst cost overruns I've ever seen in my career in Congress, on the nuclear side and on the non-nuclear side. So when the gentleman wants to cut administrative costs, my worry is that we will not have the kind of rigor that the chairman and I have been trying to reinfuse in the department to better manage the dollars that we allow them to spend. And so I think the gentleman's amendment runs a real risk of creating mismanagement there simply because they don't have the personnel to do the job. And so I think that your end purpose is a very, very worthy one. And frankly, we have some small dams in Ohio that would benefit by the gentleman's amendment. But I have to come down on the side of rigor and proper administration by the department in all of their accounts. And the amount of mismanagement and cost overruns in some of their programs is into the billions. And the administrative accounts overall are only $187 million to manage a department with over $30 billion worth of expenditure and all kinds of contractors, all kinds of cleanup programs that stand on that thin reed of $187 million for nationwide contract administration and personnel administration. So I rise in opposition to the gentleman's amendment. I understand what he's trying to do, but we simply can't risk improper contract management in that department at this time. So I yield back my remaining time and urge opposition of the amendment.
The gentlelady from Ohio yields back her time. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Pennsylvania. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Gentleman from Pennsylvania.
Mr. Chairman, I request a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Pennsylvania will be postponed. For purpose does the gentlelady from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk. Number 12.
The clerk will report the amendment. Number 12.
Amendment offered by Ms. Castor of Florida. Page 22, line 5. After the dollar amount, insert increase by
Mr. Chairman, I'll ask
$1,127,000,000.
consent to waive the ruling.
Is there objection?
I have a point of order on the gentlewoman's amendment and ask that it be read.
Continue. A point of order is reserved.
Page 22, line 5. After the dollar amount, insert increase by $1,127,954,000. Page 22, line 8. Before the period, insert the following, provided that the amount made available under this heading shall be allocated between programs, projects, and activities previously funded under the heading Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy and Programs, Projects, and Activities previously funded under the heading Electricity Delivery and Energy Reliability, and the same proportion as such funds were allocated between such accounts in fiscal year 2013 by Division F of Public Law 113-6.
The gentlelady from Florida is recognized for 5 minutes on her amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I rise today to offer an amendment that would restore funding for America's renewable energy, energy efficiency, and energy conservation initiatives. Restore it to the very modest levels of the last year, 2013. These relate to the Department of Energy's energy efficiency and renewable energy initiatives, the Department's energy delivery, and energy reliability as well. The problem with the Republican bill is it slashes, it eviscerates America's commitment to renewable energy and energy conservation. They also have something that I would, maybe a term of art, rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, because they take these various accounts and squeeze them, something of a vice by a vice, down into a single account. And when you take it all together, it is a 57% reduction in energy efficiency and renewable energy. This is outrageous, it's short-sighted, and it's very poor public policy. The Republican bill slashes clean energy initiatives that are critical to the all-of-the-above energy strategy that I thought we all agreed on that is needed for U.S. energy independence, ranging from solar to wind power and new technologies for more energy-efficient buildings and advanced vehicles. So I have to say, Mr. Chair, if I hear any of my Republican colleagues say they're for an all-of-the-above approach on energy policy, this energy and water appropriations bill belies that. It really pulls this curtain back on what the plan really is on the other side of the aisle. The administration has objected, and I agree with them. They write, the Republican bill would leave U.S. competitiveness at risk in new markets for clean energy industries such as advanced vehicles, advanced manufacturing, energy efficiency for homes and businesses, and domestic renewable energy such as wind, solar, and biomass. They do this at a time when they're content to leave huge taxpayer subsidies going to the big oil companies, meanwhile slashing very modest investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and energy conservation. Specifically, the impacts of these cuts will reduce by 50% the homes weatherized to help our neighbors back home reduce their energy bills. And Ranking Member Capter was absolutely correct. Those working-class neighbors back home do not have big lobbyists here in Washington, D.C. This bill would also significantly delay research on next-generation technologies that save energy in our homes, our schools, our hospitals, and businesses. The Republican bill will hinder the development of cost-effective new technologies and appliance standards that save Americans money by increasing energy productivity. This bill spells a likely demise, an end to solar industry job training for students and military veterans at 261 community colleges. The Republican bill will slow efforts to modernize and secure the energy delivery grid and respond to energy emergencies. I ask simply that we return the funding levels to the very modest levels of last year. And the amendment also directs that funds be allocated in the same proportion that they were in fiscal year 13. Because these clean energy initiatives are critical to achieving energy independence, boosting our economy, creating jobs, maintaining global leadership. Ranking Member Kaptur was absolutely right during this debate. She said we are sacrificing our future and not living up to the standards of this great country because you're slashing the investments that make this country go, investing in innovation and technology. And I'm afraid that it really highlights the broader issue, and that's the fact that the Republicans refused to negotiate on the budget. They passed a budget 100 days ago. The Democrats have appointed conferees. I don't know what the holdup is, why my Republican colleagues are afraid to negotiate on the budget. But in the meantime, here in this amendment, we have an opportunity to stand up for jobs, for clean energy, and the future of our great nation. I ask for the support of the Castor Amendment. I yield back my time.
The gentlelady yields back her time. What purpose does the gentleman from New Jersey seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I insist on my point of order. Mr. Chairman, the amendment proposes a net increase in budget authority in the bill. The amendment is not in order under Section 3D3 of House Resolution 5, 113th Congress, which states, and I quote, "It shall not be in order to consider an amendment to a general appropriations bill proposing a net increase in budget authority in the bill unless considered en bloc with another amendment or amendments proposing an equal or greater decrease in such budget authority pursuant to Clause 2F of Rule 21." End of quotation. The amendment proposes a net increase in budget authority in the bill in violation of such section. I ask for a ruling from the chair.
Member wish to be heard on the point of order? Gentlelady from Florida.
I appreciate that there's a point of order brought up, but I think there is a major point of order that faces this House of Representatives, and that's the fact that the Democrats have appointed conferees to negotiate the budget, and my Republican colleagues appear to be afraid to come together and discuss the budget. That is why
the gentlelady will confine her point of order comments to the point of order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At this time, I think I'll insist upon a vote on the point of order.
The chair is prepared to rule. The gentleman from New Jersey makes a point of order that the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Florida violates Section 3D3 of House Resolution 5. Section 3D3 establishes a point of order against an amendment proposing a net increase in budget authority in the pending bill. As persuasively asserted by the gentleman from New Jersey, the amendment proposes a net increase in the budget authority in this bill. Therefore, the point of order is sustained. The amendment is not in order.
May I ask for a recorded vote on the point of order?
The amendment is not in order.
I move to table and call for a vote on that.
What purpose does the gentlelady from Florida seek recognition?
She wants to reverse his ruling on the point of order. We want to table his ruling on the point of order.
Okay.
Yeah, she wants to appeal the ruling of the chair. That's what she wants to do.
So you would, if you really want to do that, move to appeal the ruling of the chair.
Yeah, do it.
I'll appeal the ruling of the chair.
And then you'll have to call for the ayes and nays.
The question is, the ruling of the chair stand as the judgment of the committee. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. What purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk. It's amendment number 52.
Clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Brown of Georgia. And the item relating to Department of Energy, energy programs, renewable energy, energy reliability and efficiency, after the first dollar amount, insert reduced by $9,826,370. And the spending reduction account, after the dollar amount, insert increase by $9,826,370,000.
Gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The bill before us today cuts significant amounts from a number of programs which I have traditionally targeted for spending reductions. And I commend my friends, the full committee chairman, Hal Rogers, and the subcommittee chairman, also a good friend, Mr. Breland Housing, for this cuts, and I congratulate them on such. That being said, we're at a time of a real fiscal emergency. Congress has allowed the sequester to happen, and we can see some of the effects of the sequester in this underlying bill. I opposed the use of the sequester from the get-go because I believe that a government-wide, across-the-board cuts are not a wise way of cutting spending. I believe it's bad policy. Instead of furloughing civilian DOD employees and cutting our military, we ought to make targeted cuts where there's room to do so. And this amendment, Mr. Chairman, would do just that. It would trim just a small additional 1%, or about $9.8 million from programs relating to renewable energy and energy efficiency, and put that amount towards spending reduction. The committee report for the underlying bill notes that funding for these programs prioritizes reducing gas prices and supporting American manufacturing. And absolutely, we must be doing those things. Yet these funds are focused on technologies which are still emerging, like new vehicle technology, hydrogen and fuel cell technology, and bioenergy. Mr. Chairman, I'm not arguing that these technologies aren't worth studying. What I'm suggesting is that I'm not suggesting that we completely defund them. I'm suggesting we make a mere 1% cut towards the proposed spending level. What I'm saying is that we make this small additional cut and work towards getting our fiscal house in order before pouring scarce funding into new, unproven technology. I urge support of my amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Back is time. Gentleman from New Jersey.
I move to strike the last word and oppose the gentleman's amendment.
The gentleman from New Jersey is recognized for 5 minutes.
The gentleman from Georgia's amendment would further cut funding for renewable energy and energy reliability and efficiency program by additional 1% from the levels contained in our bill. The Energy and Water Development Bill cuts levels by $2.9 billion below last year's level, including $971 million from renewable energy and energy-efficient activities. In just those counts alone, that's 50% below fiscal year 2013 and 67% below the President's request. To that end, the funding the bill preserves is just as important as the funding it cuts. Our bill focuses the vast majority of remaining funds within this account on programs that can address high gas prices and help American manufacturers compete in the global marketplace. These programs can reduce American manufacturing costs, help companies compete in that market, creating jobs here at home. Reducing federal spending is critical. That's why the bill reduces funding for this account to half its current levels. But we also must make strategic investments to address high gas prices and help America compete. The amendment would eliminate these important programs, and I urge members to oppose it and yield back.
The gentleman yields back his time. Gentlelady from Ohio, seek recognition.
Yes, I move to strike the last word, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
I rise in opposition to the Brown amendment and really find it somewhat incredible that in the bill that the majority brought forward, the renewable energy accounts have been cut by over half, over 60% already. This gentleman proposes an amendment to cut it by an additional 1%. That equals $9,826,370 to an account that has already just been drubbed. Now, I want to say something here. Here's a chart that shows America's trade deficit. And energy, imported energy, comprises the largest account. We haven't had a balanced trade deficit since the 1970s when the job hemorrhage started in this country, and it gets worse every year. America's future depends on innovation. We can't continue to live like this. Every community you go to in this country, they say, well, we have to move somewhere because my child can't find a job, or gosh, I just had to get another job and I had my salary cut in half. It's pretty obvious what's been happening. The major category of trade deficit is energy imports. Energy, because we are not self-sufficient in energy production in this country. Part of the answer lies in new energy systems. Systems that even NASA has helped us to begin to invent. Yes, in the solar field. Yes, in new hydrogen technologies like cryogenic hydrogen. Yes, in natural gas. Thank goodness the Department invested in fossil fuel technologies. That's where the fracking technologies came from. It came from thinking about the future, not living in the past. So the gentleman's cutting even further into the bone. We've already cut to the bone. Now you're sort of whacking the spine in half and saying, well, let's cut some more there. Well, either you live in the future or you live in the past. And I sadly view the gentleman's amendment as a retreat to the past. I want to live in an America that's a can-do nation, an America that invents new technologies, and literally the renewable technologies are going to have to be there when the finite resources of carbon-based fuels aren't there anymore, because they are finite. They're finite globally. And I stand here today also for every single soldier in our country that's died in the line of duty trying to protect the sea lanes to bring that stuff in here, because they're trying to help America hold it together while she isn't energy independent here at home. So these investments in the future are vital to the future if one is capable of thinking forward about what that future might look like. I've seen a technology, sir, that can take a thin filament invented by the best scientists this country has. They float it in a nitrogen bath, and from point of generation of power to point of use, it's 100% energy efficient. Unlike the current transmission technologies that we have today, where we lose 25 to 80% of our power. There has to be a majority in here, 218, that are capable of thinking about living in the future, not just the past. I oppose the gentleman's amendment. I think that he's trying to be a good budgeteer, I guess, but in so doing, he cuts off the nose to spite his face. America deserves to have an energy future, and it won't happen with amendments like this one. So I oppose the gentleman's amendment, ask my colleagues to vote no, and I yield back my remaining time.
The gentlelady yields back her time. Questions on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Georgia. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
On that, Mr. Chairman?
From Ohio.
Yes, I would ask for a recorded vote on that.
Pursuant to Clause 6, Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Georgia will be postponed. What purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I seek recognition because I have an amendment at the desk.
The clerk will report the amendment.
Amendment offered by Mr. Cohen of Tennessee, page 22, line 5.
I ask unanimous consent that that amendment be considered as read.
Is there objection? The clerk will continue to read.
Page 22, line 5, after the dollar amount, insert increased by $50 million. Page 29, line 21, after the dollar amount, insert reduced by $50 million.
My friend from Colorado who shares my birth date didn't understand what was going on. He didn't want to listen to this. Nobody wants to listen to this.
The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Lambert. My amendment, which is worthy of being considered and passed, but not necessarily to be heard, would reappropriate $50 million from the weapons activities account to the renewable energy, energy reliability, and efficiency account. It's kind of a compromise about what we've been hearing. It doesn't take too much from nuclear. It gives some back to solar. It's a compromise where we work together. In this bill, the weapons activities account, which had been funded at $7.7 billion, that's more than $190 million over the President's request and over $95 million more than the account had in 2013. And to offset this increase, which the committee voted, The committee decided to do so by funding the Renewable Energy Reliability and Efficiency account at only $982 million, slashing that account by almost 50% in this budget. While ensuring the security of the United States is certainly very, very important, the consequences of ignoring climate change trends and data is resulting in a serious and ever-growing threat right here on our own soil. I know that the goal of everybody here in the House is energy independence, and it's a paramount concern to all of us. However, in order to achieve this goal, we must dedicate ourselves and our budget to the serious business of securing that energy future. Ensuring that our renewable energy research program is adequately funded is one of the most effective and climate-neutral ways to achieve this goal. For example, solar power is the most abundant energy resource available to the planet, and demand for solar power in the United States is at an all-time high. As solar prices continue to fall, Americans are reassessing their energy resources. Cutting funding to projects that make this clean energy even more affordable is not prudent and out of line with the priorities of clean energy-minded Americans. Renewable energy is secure and domestic, and energy-efficient programs not only result in greater resource supplies, but savings for families and businesses alike. According to the Alliance to Save Energy, the President's climate plan is double domestic energy production by utilizing methods like renewable energy could save the average family household more than $1,000 every year on energy bills. Investing in renewable energy will result in safer domestic energy, job creation in the clean energy sector, and lower heating and cooling bills across the country. For these reasons and others, and in the best interest of our nation's energy security, I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this amendment. I would ask you to spend money on finding research to see ways we can come up with renewable energies and improve the savings and save about the future, save it, and yet not cut too much from the nuclear program, which we already have funded higher than the President requested our last year. I would ask for a yes vote on this amendment, a compromise amendment, and yield the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentleman from New Jersey, seek recognition.
Move to strike the last word and speak in opposition to the amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
The gentleman's amendment, as he said, would increase funding for this EERE account and by cutting weapons activities in the NNSA administration, using that as an offset. Our bill not only cuts the renewable and energy efficient energy accounts, it also cuts fossil energy by 84 million, 16%, nuclear energy by 14%. As I said earlier, Mr. Chairman, our allocation made for some tough choices. We placed the highest priority in activities which the federal government must take the lead. One of those, of course, the most critical mass is assuring funding for national security. It's our highest priority. While I support the programs that he outlines, we should not divert to programs from national security. Therefore, I oppose his amendment and ask members to do so as well. Yield back.
Gentleman, back his time. Questions on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Tennessee. Gentleman from Colorado, seek recognition.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in opposition to this amendment also.
Does the gentleman rise in or strike the last word?
I move to strike the last word.
Then the gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I object to where this money is being cut. The amendment would take another $50 million away from already low amounts for modernizing our nuclear stockpile. The President agreed several years ago that he would modernize our nuclear stockpile in order to secure ratification of the New START treaty. Under that treaty, both Russian and U.S. forces are being reduced. But we have to modernize the force so that we maintain a credible deterrent with the remaining weapons after the reductions take place. The President is not fully funding that obligation. That's troubling enough. This committee has lowered what the President recommended to an even lower level, and that's even more troubling. And if we take this amendment for a further reduction, we're really getting into serious cuts. The trouble with not modernizing our nuclear capability is that we will no longer have an effective deterrent. These weapons degrade over time. They lose their effectiveness and reliability. And if we have allies who can't depend on our nuclear deterrent, what are they going to want to do? They're going to want to go out and start their own nuclear programs. Countries like Korea and Japan, who are already talking about that, by the way. So unless you want more nuclear proliferation in the world, you want the U.S. to maintain a serious and credible deterrent and have an effective nuclear arsenal. So this amendment takes us in the wrong direction. So it's not good strategically for the United States. It's not a good savings of money, and I would urge strong rejection of this amendment. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back his time. Gentlelady from Ohio, seek recognition.
Yes, I move to strike the last word and yield time to the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Cohen.
Gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes. The gentleman from Tennessee.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We've had these discussions. We've got enough money in weapons, nuclear weapons, to destroy the world thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And I understand defense, but I also understand the future. And the future is energy self-reliance, and that comes from the sun. It's not going to be taken out of the earth. It's going to come from the solar energy that God has given us to harness and use for mankind. So the amendment, in my opinion, is a sound amendment in budgetary use, but even more so, and it's getting a little off the path. The reality is, the distinguished gentleman made remarks. He said nothing's more important than our Defense Department. I submit to you that we're cutting $1.6 billion from the National Institute of Health, and that's my Defense Department and your Defense Department and everybody else's Defense Department, because cancer and heart disease and stroke and diabetes and Parkinson's and Alzheimer's and AIDS, that's the enemy that's going to get each one of us, and we're cutting $1.6 billion from NIH, which is our Defense Department. I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back her time.
I yield back my time.
Question is now on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Tennessee. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment is not agreed to.
Mr.
Gentleman
Chair,
from Tennessee.
I would request a little ayes and noes and calling the roll.
Does the gentleman request a recorded vote?
That's exactly right.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Tennessee will be postponed. Gentleman from Georgia, seek recognition.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk. It's number 53.
Clerk will report the amendment 53.
Amendment offered by Mr. Brown of Georgia. And the item relating to Department of Energy, energy programs, renewable energy, energy reliability and efficiency, after the first dollar amount, insert reduced by $4,751,000. And the spending reduction account after the dollar amount, insert increase by $4,751,000.
The gentleman from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes on his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This amendment would reduce the appropriations that are suggested for the energy programs relating to renewable energy, energy reliability, and efficiency by $4,751,000 and increase the spending reduction account by that same amount. It is meant to eliminate the committee-recommended increase to funding for facilities and infrastructure under this section of the bill. Mr. Chairman, we must do everything that we can to rein in spending. We're facing an economic emergency as a nation, and my friends, particularly on the other side, seem to not face the fact that we're headed to an economic meltdown if we don't stop this uncontrolled spending that I believe is irresponsible. My amendment is to not cut funding, but rather it would simply eliminate the proposed increase, keeping the appropriated amount at the current levels that we have right now today. I believe that this is a common sense amendment, and I urge my colleagues to support it. Mr. Chairman, I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentleman yields back his time. Gentleman from New Jersey, seek recognition.
Move to strike the last word.
Gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
I rise to oppose the gentleman's amendment. Our bill already cuts the National Renewable Energy Lab, known as NREL, within the Department of Energy. We cut it by $15 million below the President's request. That's a 33% reduction. Quite honestly, I don't think the facility could take any further reductions that undermined this budget consolidation, which is something we've sought, something which the Department of Energy has gone ahead with. So therefore, I oppose the amendment, urge others to do the same. Yield back.
The gentleman yields back his time. The gentlelady from Ohio.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move to strike the last word.
The gentlelady is recognized for 5 minutes.
I rise to oppose the gentleman from Georgia's amendment and merely want to put this on the record. This is a chart showing U.S. imports of oil since 1973, when America became in every succeeding decade more vulnerable. And we know that if gas prices in this country go over $4 a gallon, we go into deep recession. We live at the edge every year, and we've seen what happens. So I repeat what I've said in prior debates today: either you live in the past or you attempt to live in the future and build a future. I think that the gentleman's amendment, though it might be well-intentioned, is moving America backwards. We simply have to address the fact that we are not energy independent as a country, and the renewable energy accounts are part of that future. We must embrace it. We must move our nation away from complete dependence on foreign sources of energy and stand on our own 2 feet here at home. Again, I oppose the gentleman's amendment. I ask my colleagues to do so, and I yield back my remaining time.
The gentlelady yields back her time. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Georgia. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the noes have it. The amendment, the gentleman from Georgia.
Mr. Chairman, I request a recorded vote.
Pursuant to Clause 6, Rule 18, further proceedings on the amendment offered by the gentleman from Georgia are postponed.
We do 15-5, Monica. 15-5.
Pursuant to Clause 6 of Rule 18, proceedings will now resume on those amendments on which further proceedings were postponed in the following order. Amendment number 1 by Mr. Moran of Virginia. Amendment number 2 by Mr. Moran of Virginia. Amendment number 7 by Mr. Takaro from California. Amendment by Mr. Perry of Pennsylvania. First Amendment by Mr. Brown of Georgia. The chair will reduce to 5 minutes the time for any electronic votes after the first vote in this series. The unfinished business is the request on a recorded vote on Amendment number 1 printed in Congressional Record offered by the gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Moran, on which the proceedings were postponed and on which the noes prevailed by voice vote. The clerk will redesignate the amendment.
Amendment number 1, printed in the Congressional Record, offered by Mr. Moran of Virginia.
Recorded votes have been requested. Those in support of the request for a recorded vote will rise and be counted. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. This is a 15-minute vote.
So the House is voting on amendments to the Energy and Water Project Spending Bill. The bill funds programs in the Energy Department, Army Corps of Engineers, and several independent agencies. The total cost of the bill is just over $30 billion, and that's a reduction over current spending. Earlier today, we spoke with a Capitol Hill reporter about the bill.
Zach Coleman, an Energy and Environment staff writer at the Hill. House lawmakers get right back to work this week with a government spending bill for energy and water projects. How much spending is in the bill?
Well, there's $30.4 billion in this bill. It's less than what was enacted last year. It's also less than what Barack Obama has requested. And it's taking money out of clean energy funding, and it's really highlighting the difference between Democrats and the president on that issue.
What sorts of programs are covered?
Well, it covers the Army Corps of Engineers, the Energy Department, and all of their loan guarantees and clean energy programs. And it also covers the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which Also, is a big takeaway in this bill, the amount of money that was given to that agency. That really kind of underscores the difference between the President and House Republicans on what to do with the nation's spent nuclear fuel.
You mentioned the President a couple times. What has the Obama administration said about the House bill?
Well, he's going to veto it if it gets to his desk, and that's sort of an unlikely possibility at this point anyway because of the divergence between this bill and what the Senate is working on as well. The Senate has supported clean energy funding, and it's more aligned with the President's proposal. I don't see how the two are going to meet, but you know, the chambers will pass their bills and we'll see what happens.
What can you tell us about the amendment process on the House bill?
Well, right now it's a freewheeling process. It's an appropriations bill, so anything can get put on there, and it could be a lot of messaging bills. You know, the Republicans have certainly come out in favor of fossil fuel energy. You look at natural gas, you look at coal, you look at oil. They want more funding for that type of research and less for clean energy. So look for bills and for amendments to that effect.
And it's an open amendment bill, right? So what does that mean?
Well, I mean, essentially, anything that's germane to energy, to water issues can be filed as an amendment to this bill. So there could be a lot coming down the pike, and you know, we'll just have to see what those might be.
You mentioned the levels from past years compared to this bill that the House is working on. What is that spending level? What are the differences?
Well, the spending level is about $2.8 billion less than what was enacted last year, and it's about $4.1 billion less than what the President has proposed in this year's budget. The differences really come down to clean energy and just overall cuts to get under sequestration level you know, spending. The House has significantly increased the spending in the defense bill, so they're looking for cuts in other areas, and energy is one of them. They're cutting about $900 million from clean energy programs. That's something that Democrats don't like. It's something the President doesn't like, and that's ultimately going to be a sticking point if you know, these appropriations bills are to be adopted.
What do we expect to see on the House floor in debate? Any specific issues going to come up?
Well, I think that the issue of clean energy funding in general is going to be the hot topic here. There's new restrictions that the House bill calls for on the DOE's ability to issue loan guarantees. That also could come up. That's a response to the Solyndra scandal of 2011, whereby DOE actually was asking for money from investors to keep this company afloat, and it said, you know, if you invest here, we'll make sure that you get repaid first before taxpayers. Now, the House bill would make sure that that can't happen, so that will be an issue of contention. But overall, clean energy funding, there's a big difference between Democrats and Republicans on how that should be handled. So that's certainly going to be an issue. Another one will be Yucca Mountain. That's a big difference between Democrats and Republicans, more so between Republicans and the President. Republicans have given $25 million to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to complete its reviews of using the Nevada site as the nation's sole nuclear waste dump. President Obama wants to keep that off limits. He wants to start with a different sort of plan, which the House bill doesn't fund.
Zach Coleman is an energy and environment staff writer at The Hill. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The House voting on the first of 5 amendments to the $30 billion energy and water spending bill for the next fiscal year. This amendment, offered by Jim Moran of Virginia, sets guidelines for Army Corps of Engineers programs under the Clean Water Act. The Senate Judiciary Committee today held a confirmation hearing for James Comey, the President's nominee to head the FBI. During this vote, we're going to show you some of that hearing, starting with a question from Senator Dianne Feinstein.
As you know, in December, the Senate Intelligence Committee adopted a 6,000-page report that provides a comprehensive review of the CIA's detention and interrogation program during the Bush administration. We're not quite ready to issue the findings publicly. The adoption of the report, however, is significant because it means the majority of the committee has gone on record to declare that the so-called enhanced interrogation techniques should never be used, past, present, or future. If you are confirmed to be the next FBI director, I'd like to ask you to personally review our report. It's a big deal to review it at 6,000 pages, but I think it's very important. You have that background, and I think it's important to read the actual case studies. Since I would like to focus on objections you raised with Attorney General Gonzalez in May of '05, before he attended the White House principals meeting about CIA techniques. In one of your emails that was made public in 2009, you described telling Attorney General Gonzalez that CIA interrogation techniques were, quote, simply awful, end quote. That, quote, there needed to be a detailed, factual discussion, end quote, of how they were used before approving them, and that, quote, it simply could not be that the principals would be willfully blind. Here's the question. Why did you believe that there was a danger that the principals on the National Security Council were unaware or willfully blind to the details of the CIA program?
Thank you, Senator. Because I heard no one asking that third critical question. As you recall, I said I think there are three key questions with any counterterrorism technique, but especially with the interrogations. Is it effective, something the CIA was talking about? Is it legal under the Title 18, Section 2340, the legal question? And then this last question, is this what we should be doing? And instead, I heard nothing. And in fact, it was reported to me that the White House's view was only the first two questions matter. If the CIA says it works, and DOJ will issue a legal opinion that it doesn't violate the statute, that's the end of the inquiry. And as you said, Senator, I thought that was simply unacceptable.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to speak about one other thing in my time. On June 19th, I wrote a letter to the Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel, on the issue of forced feeding of detainees at Guantanamo. A week prior, I had spent the day at Guantanamo with the President's Chief of Staff and Senator McCain, and we took a look at the forced feeding issue. Detainees are restrained in a chair by body, by foot, by hand, and twice a day a tube is inserted, perhaps covered with olive oil, up the nose and down into the stomach, and the individual is force-fed. This goes on week after week and month after month. We have 86 detainees who are cleared for transfer. They're no threat to this country. They've been adjudged so, and they have no place to go. So this is an expression of acute hopelessness in the forced feeding. The issue has recently been before the D.C. District Court. And this morning, the newspaper said that no court, justice, or judge shall have jurisdiction to hear or consider any other action against the United States or its agents relating to any aspect of the detention, transfer, treatment, trial, or conditions of confinement of an alien who is or was detained by the United States and has been determined by the United States to have been properly detained as an enemy combatant. So we have a law that essentially taken the courts out of any adjudication in this issue. I am very curious because you have looked at the combination of EITs, the manner in which they are administered, and you have come to the conclusion that they form torture. These are people now, 86 of them, who are no threat to this country. They've been cleared for transfer, many of whom are being force-fed to keep them alive. In my view, this is inhumane, and I am very curious as to what you would say about this. I have received no answer from my letter to Secretary Hagel. I am now, the President's Chief of Staff was with me. He saw what I saw, and I'm very concerned about it because it's the wrong thing to do. I would appreciate your comment.
Thank you, Senator. Obviously, if I were FBI director, I don't think it's an area that would be within my job scope, but I don't know more about what you're describing than what you're describing.
Well, let me just say, it's within all of our job scopes to care about how the United States of America acts.
I agree very much with that, Senator. And I do also know that there are times in the Bureau of Prisons when the federal authorities have had to force feed someone who's refusing to eat, and they try to do it in the least invasive way. What you're describing, I frankly wouldn't want done to me, but I don't know the circumstances well enough to offer you an opinion. I don't think it would be worth much my opinion at this point.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Feinstein. I must say I agree exactly with what you said. Senator Hatch.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome back to the committee, Mr. Comey. We're happy to have you here. I'd be surprised if this is not the third time that you will be unanimously supported by the Senate, and I would hope that that's the case. After all, an ABC News report came back in May about your likely nomination and said that you are, quote, a folk hero for Democrats, unquote. At least in your case, I don't believe that is a cause for concern on this side of the aisle. It's also easy to forget that Director Robert Mueller began his service just 1 week before the 9/11 terrorist attacks had changed our nation forever. He oversaw a fundamental reconfiguration of the FBI. Since then, Congress has provided significant tools for the FBI to use. But debate continues here in Congress about whether these tools are sufficient or appropriate. And there's also a debate in the public arena sparked by damaging leaks by reckless individuals. But even while those debates continue, I hope that we have your commitment that should you be confirmed, you will fully and aggressively use the tools that Congress has provided for your use.
Yes, Senator, you have that commitment.
I believe that. In that connection, I'm concerned that the American people do not fully understand the rules and standards that guide how the FBI uses these tools to protect the country. A recent column in the Washington Post, for example, claimed that we are living in a time of, quote, warrantless everything, unquote. Please take a minute and explain some of the rules and standards because our fellow citizens need confidence that the FBI itself respects the rule of law.
Yes, Senator. I think that folks don't understand that the FBI operates under a wide variety of constraints, starting with the Attorney General's detailed guidelines on how it's to conduct intelligence investigations, criminal investigations, and counterintelligence investigations. I think sometimes folks also don't understand what the FISA court is. They hear secret court. Sometimes they hear rubber stamp. In my experience, which is long with the FISA court, folks don't realize that it's a group of independent federal judges who sit and operate under a statutory regime to review requests by the government to use certain authorities to gather information, and it is anything but a rubber stamp. Anyone who knows federal judges and has appeared before federal judges knows that calling them a rubber stamp shows you don't have experience before them.
I sure agree with you.
And so I think that sometimes folks also don't understand the degree to which the FBI's activities and the activities of the entire intelligence community are overseen by Congress and also overseen by independent and, in my experience, highly effective inspectors general embedded within each of the institutions that report within the executive and also to the relevant oversight committee of Congress. That combination of judicial involvement, congressional oversight, IG oversight, to me, results in a very effective regime of oversight. It just took me 2 minutes to explain it. It's hard to get the time and space in American life to have folks understand that sometimes.
Well, that's good enough for me. I know you could go on for a long time on that. On March 31st, 2009, you spoke at the Humphrey Institute of Public Affairs at the University of Minnesota. When he introduced you, Vice President Walter Mondale said that you are a, quote, remarkable example of public lawyers who remember their function in obeying and enforcing the law, unquote. I would like you to just comment briefly on that dual function, both obeying and enforcing the law, as it relates to the position to which you are appointed here.
Yes, sir. The oath that public servants take is to uphold the laws and the Constitution of the United States, which means both to respect them in that you don't exceed the laws, but also to ensure that they are executed and given life. Congress intended that they be used as tools to address crime, for example, or intelligence risks, for example. And so it's very important that you be both aggressive and respectful of the boundaries, and that's a balance that people sometimes think is impossible to strike. I don't think so. I think this government is full of people who get it, that they're to do both. Respect the law and the Constitution and ensure that they use the tools to protect the American people.
Great. One of the many things I respect about Director Robert Mueller, and I greatly respect him, is his candor with Congress in acknowledging the problems in the FBI that have needed fixing. He's been very straightforward about it. He did so, for example, when the Justice Department's Inspector General released a report in 2007 about the FBI's use of national security letters. That report found an intentional misuse of either statutes or guidelines. Nonetheless, Director Mueller implemented reforms to address the deficiencies in oversight and auditing that the IG, Inspector General, identified. I hope you see the value of that transparency and accountability and will be open and candid about anything that might need to be corrected, and I'm quite sure that you do, but I just thought I would.
Well, I agree very much. That is at the core of Bob Mueller's being, and it's something I intend to emulate. Admitting mistakes and learning from mistakes is the only way in which the institution survives and improves.
I think you will. Senator Whitehouse and I, along with Representatives Schiff and Goodlatte, serve as co-chairman of the Congressional International Anti-Piracy Caucus. For years, we've worked in a bipartisan manner to highlight the scope and depth of online piracy around the world. We lose billions and billions of dollars every year because of the lack of intellectual property protections. Theft of our intellectual property undercuts the hard work of Americans who share their talents and creations with us. Unfortunately, because of ever-changing technology, those charged with enforcing these laws must constantly strive to remain a step ahead of those who perpetuate these crimes. It's not an easy job, but some of the recent investigations underscore the progress being made in this difficult area. If you are confirmed, will you continue to prioritize intellectual property enforcement, including pursuing major copyright and counterfeiting enforcement actions?
Yes, Senator. I know from my 8 years in the private sector that this is an enormous concern to businesses of all kind. One of the things that makes this remarkable country great is that we are the cradle of innovation, of ideas that become products, that become jobs, that become enormous companies. We will lose that if we aren't able to protect that which we invent.
Mr. Comey, I'm happy that you've accepted this position. I have a great deal of respect for you and intend to work with you, as I think every member of this committee does. I just want you to know that for you to be willing to come back into the government is, I think, a great service to our country, and I just want to thank you. I support you, and we hope we can make this a quick confirmation.
Thank you, Senator Hatch. Senator Schumer?
Well, thank you and welcome. And despite the fact that you have moved to Connecticut, and I hope Senator Blumenthal doesn't take offense, we still consider you a New Yorker and a Yonkers boy made good. And we've known each other a very long time, and I'm glad you're here. And I want to speak a little bit about my experience with you, because I think everyone in the committee and elsewhere should hear that, and then I'll ask a few questions. First, the job of FBI director is one of the most important jobs in the nation. It's a 10-year commitment, 10 years for two reasons. First, because a lifetime appointment runs the risk of abuse of power, as we learned from J. Edgar Hoover, but second, because a shorter appointment could put the head of the most important law enforcement body in the country in danger of being subjected to the whims of purely political appointees. So a 10-year appointment is the right amount, not lifetime, too removed, not shorter, too susceptible to whims. Now, if there's one thing I'm confident of, it is that you are more than capable of exercising independent judgment, even out-and-out courage in the face of enormous political and professional pressure. Mr. Comey, it was just a little more than 6 years ago that you sat at that table, I sat at the dais, chairing a Judiciary Subcommittee hearing about the overweening role of politics at the U.S. Department of Justice. Your testimony about this incident was one of the most courageous acts by a witness I have ever seen. And if another book were written about profiles in courage, this would certainly be a chapter. Having served as Deputy Attorney General from 2003 until 2005, you came to my subcommittee to talk about the Department's policies regarding appointments of U.S. attorneys. And at that point, the Department didn't look very good. But my staff, Preet Bharara, who was my chief counsel at the time, now U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, the place you had worked, had discovered there was more to the story. You reluctantly agreed to speak to him before the hearing on this additional topic, and after that conversation, we knew that you were prepared to testify about something of central importance, a possible constitutional crisis previously unbeknownst to the American public by an administration embroiled in, very possibly blinded by, the war on terror. And so your testimony was one of the most dramatic and brave moments that I've ever witnessed in my years as a legislator. You exhibited the wherewithal to talk about a different ilk of interference with law enforcement decision-making in the Department of Justice, the apparent attempt by two members of the President's team, Alberto Gonzales and Andrew Card, to attain the approval of John Ashcroft for a warrantless domestic surveillance program while Mr. Ashcroft lay ill in his hospital bed. In fact, you were the acting Attorney General on that night, March 10, 2004, and you were not willing to sign off on the full scope of the program that the White House wanted the Department of Justice to authorize. The history is known, but at the hospital, you and FBI Director Mueller made sure that no approval was given for a program you believed had no legal authorization, and in fact, on threat of your resignation and that of other senior department officials, it appeared the program was authorized only after it had been modified to your satisfaction. So, Mr. Comey, in 2005, you gave a speech in which you said that a good lawyer must be willing to say no when it matters most. As FBI Director, will you still be able to say no when it matters most, as you did on that day when you were the acting attorney, and that night when you were acting Attorney General?
Yes, Senator, I believe so.
Okay, good. And I have every faith that you will. Mr. Comey, the details of the program at issue in 2004 and your decision-making are still classified. News reports have suggested you were reviewing information gathering programs that involved large amounts of metadata from phone records and the Internet. The parameters of what are perhaps modified versions of these programs may have been authorized later by the FISA court under the FISA Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act beginning in 2006. Leaks of classified documents also indicate that the FISA court had approved gathering the content of email under certain circumstances, circumstances that might be broader than what most Americans have assumed. Now, there's always been an age-old struggle between security and liberty. This tension has never been more stark in the 12 years since 9/11. As a New Yorker, I realize that very well. You know that better than most through your roles in many roles in law enforcement before and after these events. My view, when you have the classic conflict of liberty and security, is first, the debate should be open. Second, the resulting policies have to be governed by rules, whether they're set by Congress and the administration. And third, and this is where my questions lead, an independent arbiter must determine whether these rules are being followed. So in order to make sure that we strike the right balance as a society, we need to know more about what the FISA court's role is in approving these programs, as they have been reported. My questions to you are as follows. First, would you be willing to support declassifying or releasing declassified summaries of FISA court opinions that have been issued regarding these programs, as Senator Merkley proposes to do in a bill that I'm a supporter of? Obviously with limitations on any security breaches.
Senator, I agree with you that